Councilmember Guerra. Welcome to the Ring of Democracy, a non-political, nonprofit organization dedicated to further democratizing the electoral process here in Sacramento. I'm Angelica Campos alongside with Kellen Wilhite. Our goal here is to inform the community and engage the community in meaningful dialogue with you as a candidate running to represent district again.
Right. So today we're excited to have current council member Eric Guerra, who is running again for the role of District 6 City Council member. So Eric, before we dive in, could you please tell us briefly who you are outside of politics and campaigning, so our audience members may get to know you a little bit more personally?
Well, thank you everyone for the opportunity. And so yeah, outside of being a council member, I'll say I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm an immigrant. So many folks don't know that I came here at a young age. My family and I moved from a small little mountain village in Michoacan, Mexico. And if you were to follow the Sierra Nevada all the way south of Baja, south of Guadalajara, about the latitude of Mexico City, we're in the Sierra Madre up there. And interestingly enough, I was born in the same little adobe house that my mother was born in, and also the same adobe house that my 76 first cousins were born in as well. The other 76 first cousins were born in fancy hospitals, go figure. But all to say is I grew up as a migrant farm worker here. I came here at a young age. We worked since the age of 5, picking fruit, harvesting fruit, looking for any kind of work as a ranch hand. Fortunately, faced some hard times during the deportations of the 1980s when there was a very conservative element at that time. We were fortunate enough to come back and become legalized through the Immigration Reform Act of '86, but it was all just an interesting process, because even through that whole time and going through college and whatnot, I become a citizen until 2002. So from 1989 to 2002, during the time of being a farm worker, a college student, it took to become a U.S. citizen, and then found myself here in Sacramento. So it's a interesting history, other than being just your council member who works on the traditional issues of streets, parks, public safety, potholes, those kinds of issues.
Right. And thank you for sharing. I believe a lot of our audience members can relate to your story. So that's why we want to ask who you are, so audience members can get to know you outside of politics, to relate to you on a human level. So thank you.
I'm glad to.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Guerra. So I wanted to jump right in and start asking the questions that I know the community wants to know. So the first question I have for you is, what do you see as the most pressing currently in your district?
The issues that affect my district are not uncommon from other districts. I mean, I think the one thing that we need to recognize is that political boundaries, these little lines on who can vote and who can't, the only thing that separates us in those districts is who can vote. But the issues of air quality, homelessness, crime, economic opportunity, those bounce between district lines. So, the issues that are affecting folks in District 6 are the same of housing insecurity, affordable housing, workforce opportunity, all of the issues of inflation and the cost of living, and the hope and opportunity for the future. Those are the same things that many people are facing. And this is why, even though I represent a council district, I always talk about regionalism and working as a city, because I do believe that parochialism and only caring about one little part of an island, because we don't live in an island, means that we're being closed-minded to what's going to happen if we don't address the bigger issues. So I care as much about what's happening in District 5 as in District 4 as it is what's happening in District 6. The issue of housing affordability and homelessness and instability, many times we look at it from a band-aid of people who need housing now. But many times we forget to have the conversation about, what happens in that situation. And I think that we need to also be focusing more on the issue of wages, on the issue of employment opportunity. Because many of the times when you talk to folks, and I know it for myself as a farm worker who who worked at minimum wage, and also piece rate labor, which can be even much more challenging, particularly in ag or construction work. It's not enough to sustain yourself. So making sure that we're training people, that we're looking at apprenticeship programs, that we're looking at programs that are upskilling people, that are giving them career path jobs. Not everyone will go to a four-year degree, a great and important opportunity. But if we can look at the wage side and also create an environment where we're looking at local good labor jobs that provide workforce and healthcare, then we can address the issues that we're seeing on the housing side, which is the ability to buy a home, the ability to pay rent, the ability to have, if you have an issue that puts you in a precarious situation. And to me, those are all interconnected. For somebody to say, oh, you've got to work on the number one issue, which is just housing, means that you're being blind to the other impacts that are affecting everyone, which is on the wage side, on the retirement side, on the stability side of what a family needs. But those are the top issues there.
Thank you, Councilmember Guerra, and I appreciate you mentioning the intersectionality of all those different issues and how that can, it's not just housing, but other things that need to be addressed. So, but while we're on the topic of housing, we did have a question from a community member, Mari. She asked, what is your step-by-step plan to shelter our unhoused community, and do you support Safe Ground? Two-part question there.
Yeah, so one, we have to look at multiple options. So on the step-by-step, one of the things we're doing is we have to provide housing at all income levels, not just market rate housing, but so if you go down Stockton Boulevard, over off of right next to 22nd Avenue, you're going to see a new workforce housing development going in 200 units of mixed income, everything from extremely low income, so seniors on a fixed income, folks who are formerly homeless, to also those making 80% of, that means school teachers, clerical workers, grocery workers. So that unit will house 200 units. Down the street at the San Juan Motel site, I work to build out an area that's going to be another 100 units of affordable housing, your traditional affordable housing. That'll be those at the extremely low and low income side as well. So we need to continue to look at all of these areas, areas where we have transit available, so that we can start building out that housing. And then on the unsheltered side, further down Stockton, we're going to be building out 175 units of small manufactured homes. These are single individual homes that'll be up and running, have heating and air, but most importantly with mental health and substance abuse services. So important to make sure that we're looking at all of these pieces. And as we triage people into these tiny homes, these manufactured homes, what's the next step? Well, we're doing a motel retrofit on Power Inn Road with Hope Cooperative. Hope that's putting kitchenettes and motel rooms. These are for folks that are in a longer extended stay, and with the workforce training and the industrial sector in that area. So it's not just enough to house somebody, but it's how do we get to them and work. So we're moving that step forward. And in the Safe Ground side, I was the maker of the motion that directed the city manager to find locations for any type of respite, whether it be Safe Ground, motels, or the safe stay communities. And I'm proud to say that we did open up one that's got 200 units, 200 space for 200 people, both trailer homes and manufactured homes. We need to find more locations, but that is the biggest challenge. It's where do we find the space that has access to water, has access to sewer, has access to electrical? Because as we saw in the last couple of weeks, it was cold. And what we'll know in a few months, it's going to get hot. So we need the electrical to be able to have healthy and safe places for folks so that they can live in a place with the conditions available.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Guerra, for touching on that and answering that question for the community member.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear, Eric, that the northern area of District 6 has more improved infrastructure, better roads, and economic resources compared to the southern area of District 6, where majority of those residents are Black and Brown people. I want to ask, what are your plans to provide equitable resources to the southern part of District 6?
Well, it's interesting because I would say that argument on the road side and infrastructure side, unfortunately, isn't true. If you go down La Riviera today, which is on the northern side, on the other side of Highway 50, you're going to find some massive potholes, unfortunately. And that issue's also, if you go down to Elder Creek, that's occurred because a city like ours that's older, over, since 1849 in its development, is facing a backlog of infrastructure. Now, what is clear in that area is the issue of like our tree canopy and even lighting. Different types where the city was built. Some areas required street lighting, some areas didn't. So the issues that we're facing in many of these areas are very similar. Where I think there is a big impact is how it impacts walkability and bikeability. So if you look at a community like West Tahoe Park or Elmhurst, which is affluent, it was built at a time when we had streetcars, we had public transit, and so the streets were narrower because less people drove. When we moved to a car-centric society, and then redlining, where it forced people out of the central city, and you had Black and brown communities moving into the South area, and you created these large avenues like Elder Creek, a 4-lane plus a suicide lane, or I guess we shouldn't call that, but middle divider. Now that became a very dangerous area for kids to bike in. And on top of that, redlining forced that. So the planning and the design of that led to these unfortunate areas with high deaths, high fatalities, and like Stockton Boulevard, an old Highway 99 became a residential area. So all of those things on infrastructure, the infrastructure that or measure that was ballot twice failed. For the everyone's safety, whether you're in an affluent area like Howe Avenue over by Sierra Oaks, where we've had cyclists hit by vehicles, or you're down in Elder Creek, this unfortunately now is an epidemic that is facing everyone. But one of the things that I think clearly you can see in the area that is not connected to the north area is like our tree canopy. And why is that important on the tree canopy side? Because when you have a strong tree canopy, you encourage walkability, you encourage people out on the street, you encourage more neighborhood connection, and young kids are out feeling safe. When it's 110 degrees out or 105 degrees out, nobody wants to be in the direct sun. So then no surprise that the air quality is worse in the South area, where you also see that obesity is higher, where you see less people out connecting with each other. But in a more affluent area where people have money and resources to take care of those trees and to make, then you see better health outcomes, more walkability. And even if they don't have streetlights, you have that neighborhood connection to be able to support that area. So one of the things that I pushed as one member of the Air District, as a member of CARB, is to fund organizations like the Sacramento Tree Foundation to increase the number of public infrastructure in planting trees to make sure that we're changing that. One of the things that I think we should look at is a lot of rental properties out there. The landlords don't maintain their trees, and the residents, many of them low-income families, can't afford that. Also, seniors who are out on their own, can't afford to or plant a tree themselves. And in the South area, you have a lot of original homeowners who have bought their home but no longer can plant a tree. So we worked with Neighbor Woods program most recently, volunteers to go help plant trees and to connect them with SMUD so that they can go and find a good place. Now, when we do that, we reduce people's electricity costs. We make the property areas much more beautiful and increase their value. So those are the kind of strategies that we need to do in order to increase some of that walkability. And as some may think, well, it's just a tree, but actually when we create urban canopy, that creates value to that property owner, but it also creates better health outcomes in those areas.
Speaking of air quality, we know that you sit on the California Air Resources Board. According to the California Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, District 6 is in the red zone for air quality, especially in the southern part, much like you mentioned, where Black and brown residents live. So what are some specific strategies you have in mind to improve air quality in that area?
A couple of things we've done. One is important, increasing the air monitoring. So one of the things that the city has done, and I was able to get, is $500,000 to create more air monitoring in the entire city, south area and north area. So if you go up to Del Paso Heights, in that area, poor air quality by a free air quality by the industrial area. So we do have to do things like planting trees that capture particulates. But the other thing is figuring out where those particulates are coming from. Reducing those emissions is important. The other piece that we've done is worked with entities like Pepsi-Cola to go electric and use different electric vehicles so that they're putting out less emissions. So now they've been the first ones to electrify their fleets. I just talked to one of them near that's across the street from these neighborhoods, who they also want to go into electrifying their fleets to be able to reduce their emissions. So some of them want to look at, well, is hydrogen going to come along the way? So we have to look at these strategies to evolving our fleets so that communities, industrial areas, we are less impacted. Now, some people would say, well, we just need to get rid of the industrial area there. But just remember, a lot of the folks who live in that area also work in that area. So we have to find a balance of jobs and environment, making sure we can do both. One of the exciting things is looking at, because it's heavy industrial, they require these big vehicles. Well, we are looking at hydrogen production for those, and if we can produce more hydrogen locally, we can transform that. One of the exciting things that we're going to start seeing here is a project with a regional sanitation sewer district. Now you're saying, well, what does the sewer district have to do with clean air? Well, every time we flush that toilet in the morning, it goes to a sewer district and it creates methane. Well, rather than putting that methane out in the air and burning it, like burning gasoline or any fossil fuel, we're going to be converting it into hydrogen. And so imagine if every day we flush that toilet, produce hydrogen, and we're able to provide a fuel source that is cleaner for everyone. Now that's the start of it. In the future, we're going to be moving forward. So all of these pieces are important. Finally, it's important to get state funding for this. So I will, as chair of the Air District and as a CAR board member, I led the effort to also become the South Sacramento area to be designated as a clean air protection zone. So now the state has designated that as an area where we're testing, looking for improvements, and identifying strategies to improve the air.
Awesome. Thank you
very much, Councilmember Guerra. And unfortunately, we had some more questions, but we are getting to time, and we want to leave you with that last moment to basically leave the voters with what last statement you would like to make. Why should people in Sacramento in District 6 vote for you?
Well, it's a beautiful community. It's a wonderful, diverse community, a community that has you're down in Little Saigon, if you're in Glen Elder, if you're up in College Greens, it's a working class community. And I think the vision of looking at how we improve families, how we support families so that they have good jobs locally, good paying jobs with healthcare. We have local industry so people don't have to leave an hour away to be able to be with their kids when something happens. And to think about the balance of housing so that we have housing and affordability for people, but also ability to buy a home locally so you don't have to move to another city or another part of the region. You can continue to support your neighborhood. My philosophy is always to improve the neighborhood up, and I hope to continue to do that to help have healthy and strong neighborhoods.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, Councilmember Guerra, and to our audience, make sure you vote for this March 5th election.
Yes.
It's very important to view all these sit downs. Thank you, Councilmember, for sitting down with us and taking the time to give the voters what they want to hear and, see that they can make their informed decision on who to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thank you. We appreciate you.